name is Jim Hennager. I'm putting together these series of videotapes to try and help people that are going in through some kind of life transition. Could be that you're coming out of a military situation and you're in need of a new job. Could be that you've lost a job and laid off. You need to find another job. It could be that you have been in prison and you're coming out and you're trying to get back into society with a new job. It could be that you've had to move from one location to another and you find yourself looking for another job. So this video is about jobs, the changing world of work, and my background is in sociology and management. I've taught for a number of years, thousands of students, and that's a very big concern for students. They're spending all of this time and effort and money to become educated, and they hope to find a job that makes it worthwhile. So there's always the argument in academia is going to school like a college or university, are you doing that to become well-rounded and liberally educated, or are you really trying to get the best job possible because of these efforts? And it's a good debate. I think some students like the liberal arts, like to think in different ways, find out what other people are like and how they might think. I think that's good. I like the liberal education. But I also value that people have recognized that to get a good job you need a degree, you need a high school degree, you need a college degree, and it makes a huge difference in the amount of money that you would earn over your lifetime. So I have no problem with going to school just to improve your life and get a better job. So what I'd like to do today is divide this topic into four units. And the first unit deals with basically the history of jobs here in the United States. And I start with this because I think it's important to realize that jobs have changed over the years. Everything changes, but jobs particularly. And if you go back 100 years ago to the beginning of the 19th century, what you would find is that maybe 70% of the people are in jobs related to agriculture. They either live on a farm or they work with some kind of farm income, and 90% of the people lived in small towns or rural America, and all of those were connected to the farm community. So a lot of people think of that as an idyllic time, where living off the land and raising your family in rural areas, and it has a lot of advantages. I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but 100 years ago it was hard work. I would suggest that the average farmer was putting in over 3,000 hours a year, and whether it was with horses or with small tractors, it was a major effort, and they probably only had 60 or 80 acres. So they weren't making a lot of money, but they were surviving, they were taking care of their family, and they were doing what they wanted to. That began to change in the early 1900s when more and more opportunities became available in the cities, particularly in the north, where industries were starting. We started to see the steel industry, we started to see the railroad, we started brick making. All of these factories needed people, and at first the people that were coming to the cities to get these jobs off of the farm had a lot of difficulties in adapting to a completely different environment, a lifestyle. Before, on the farm, you could work when you wanted to, eat when you wanted to, and take a day off when you wanted to, if that allowed it. But when you got into a job and somebody else was paying you, that environment changed. And what we saw were some industrialists like Carnegie and Mellon put millions of dollars into pushing ahead some new strategies for school. At first, in the early 1900s, we saw the one-room school in the rural areas, but in the cities we began to see 2- and 3-story brick buildings that looked an awful lot like factories. And to be honest, it was like a new factory. Classrooms were set up in rows where people worked at workbenches. There was a teacher or a boss up in front, and even the grades, A, B, C, D, F. F was sort of like being fired. So you were evaluated, you had hallways with lockers or hangars, you had 2 or 3 minutes between classes, you might have 15 or 20 minutes for lunch. You see, all of that was structuring people to get used to working in a factory. And there's no doubt that millions of people moved off the farm and into these factory cities, city life, urban life, during that 70 years or so in the first part of the 1900s. And to a large extent, people were looking for factory jobs. They paid well, they provided benefits, and they were good places to invest a good share of your life in. Now, by the time we got to 1980s, what we were seeing is that less than half of high school graduates were actually going into factory-type jobs. And the number of people going to college were coming out not looking for those kinds of jobs. So by the 80s, we saw that more people were going into service-related jobs. They were in communications, they were in service kinds of situations where they were taking care of customers, or they were in retail, a store. They were promoting things, they were writing, they were communicating. So the nature of work actually changed quite a bit in the 1980s and 90s, so that there was a different type of worker needed. Instead of the person that could be depended on to be there for 8 hours every day that was needed and push buttons, that kind of worker was no longer needed. And what was needed in the workplace was people that could be independent, could in many cases solve problems on their own without a boss very close, somebody who could communicate very well with their customers and with each other, who got along in the workplace, who fostered the kind of ideals that each company might have. And basically a good worker became a new type of person. And in many cases, our schools were very slow to realize this. We were still in a factory mode. In fact, many schools today look like factories. So we still have homework, we still have the teacher up front, we still have lesson plans where everybody has to be on the same page on each day. And it's not individualized much at all, although we're moving in that direction. So as the schools move, I think we're going to see more workers accustomed to those kinds of skills, being able to problem solve and work together on teams. And that's the nature of work, clear up into the early 200s, 210, now it's 216. We're seeing those kinds of jobs and those kinds of work requirements. Now we're also seeing a movement in a new direction, as particularly since 2000, where people are being allowed to work from home. Maybe not every day, but maybe 2 out of 3 days they can work from home. And this sets up a new kind of work character that the businesses are looking for. When you're working at home and you're working for somebody, it really is important that you have discipline, that you can get the work done when you need it, and you don't have to have supervision. You know what to do, you've been well trained, and you're very comfortable with that setting at home, maybe a home office or an office in the basement or in the kitchen someplace where you can do your work. But what we've found is that it creates a lot of problems because if you have children, you have activities during the day, and many, particularly women that did insurance administration at night, found that they were involved with activities from 6 or 7 in the morning till maybe 9 or 10 at night with their families, and then they had to do their work from maybe 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, which meant they weren't getting enough sleep, and that affected the quality of the work, affected their health. And many of these insurance companies have now come back to asking the workers to come in and do the work at a desk during the day. So you can see it produces challenges to the kind of work environment and the kind of management styles that you would need to work with a number of people like they are today. It is forecasted that more than half of the workers in the future will probably work from home in one way or the other, and I offer that as something that you could consider, because it means some new challenges and a different kind of worker. So there's some other changes that have happened over the last 100 years. Obviously, one of them is the amount of education. In the 50s, people needed a high school degree, but now almost all of the good jobs, higher paying jobs, require a college degree. And we're seeing that people with graduate degrees are taking jobs that before may have only been allocated to people in high school. So the educational level has gone up, more and more people are educated, and it has produced a different kind of worker. They're more capable of dealing with technology. They understand the kind of engineering problems, math problems that might be related to the job. And in many cases, they have to either build a machine or repair a machine, fix a machine, design a machine, market the machine. It's very related to technology in most jobs today, either in the communication or the application of those technologies in the workplace. So we're more technical, we're more educated, and I think we're more complicated. We have more kinds of things that stress us at jobs. We have more kind of human-to-human kind of concerns in an open work environment. And we've seen, that not everybody adapts to that. We've seen a lot of situations where people get disgruntled, they might get fired, they might get disciplined, and they react to that in very harmful ways. So I think employers are looking for people that can do the job, has the experience, have the education, but also fit into the work environment, fit in as a loyal employee, and that's changed the world of work. There's just no doubt about it. So if you're a person that's looking for work, I urge you to look at it from the other side of the table. If you were the employer, what would you want that new employee to be like? What kind of skills, what kind of education, what kind of training, what kind of personality, what kind of temperament? All of these things are important to employers if they're hiring somebody that they want to keep for a while. So that's the changing world, and I just urge you to be aware that you need to find a way to fit into this new job that you want so that you're benefiting the employer. A lot of workers don't realize that they're being paid to benefit an employer. The employer has to see some benefit from your job and work so that they make more money, or that they can produce more products or higher quality products or higher quality service. So if you're looking at the job from that perspective, you're going to be able to see it from the boss's perspective or the owner's perspective, and that's important because they're not hiring you to just give you money and have you around. They want some return. They want to know that you're giving them something that's going to benefit their company. So as long as you're understanding that relationship, that's important. And that makes a difference in how you apply and how you interview. You don't want to go in with some kind of a chip on your shoulder or attitude that says, I deserve this job, or, you need to hire me because I'm special or something like that. In most every job, there's hundreds and hundreds of applicants, and I've been a person who hires hundreds of people. I've hired hundreds of faculty people, and for every position there were always hundreds of applicants. So it was a situation where the employer had to match what they needed to what they were looking at in a new hire situation. So not only look at it from the company's point of view, but try to find out in a written description exactly what that job is described as. There should be a written description for every job in most companies today. See if you can get that description, because that'll tell you how they're going to hire, the kind of qualities that they're looking for, the kind of education and experience they're looking for. And if you're sending a resume to them, try to design that resume to match those things that you can. You don't want to lie about things, because if I found somebody on a resume that didn't make sense, I'd call and find out from other employers or their school exactly what their situation was. I found people that would lie on their resume, and immediately you wouldn't hire somebody that would do that. So you want to be honest, but you want to kind of design that resume to match their needs. And as an employer, I would develop a matrix, a worksheet that usually would have maybe 10 different characteristics of things that I was looking for. And then I would rate them. So maybe the top 3 would be the most important, and then the next 3 would be second important, and the last 3 or 4 would be things that I would watch for, but they wouldn't necessarily mean I would hire from that. So if you're looking at how that matrix or how that list would be, and they might not give that to you, you have to kind of put it together yourself. You can almost see what they're looking for in the work description, and put together a description or a list of what characteristics you would think that they would look for, and see in the interview if they're asking questions about those kinds of issues. And in some cases, I would find a very good candidate, maybe somebody that worked in the agency for a while. We knew them, we trusted them, but they didn't match on the education or training, for example. So I would take them aside, and after they applied, and explain to them why we couldn't hire them, because other candidates had more points on that matrix or more points on the list. And I would tell them, what they would need to do. In some cases, I would ask them to go back to school. And in at least 2 cases I can think of right now, that's what they did. They were still working, but they went to night school, they got an accounting degree. And when they came back to apply, that just moved their points up that much more. And I hired them. They were very good workers. And good employers will look for that kind of employee who has matched their needs. Okay, I need you to understand that. Okay, so when you're looking at the world of work, it has different meanings for different people. And what I would like you to do is write me a little essay about who you are and what you're looking for in a job, and what that job might mean to you. And there's a wide continuum of what work means to people. For example, on one end, I knew a young fellow at 18. He decided that he didn't want anything to do with the world of work. That if all you're going to do is work 40 or 50 years so you could retire and relax and enjoy yourself, he was going to enjoy his life without working. And he developed a strategy where, just riding on his bike, he'd go from town to town and state to state, and eventually he traveled around the globe, I think 5 different times, just taking odd jobs, dishwashing or day jobs to earn a little money, and then he'd go on to the next place. He literally took his bicycles, a number of bicycles, all around the world many times, and he would get on a freighter and do odd jobs to get passage to another country. And he lived his whole life that way, and he had some very interesting stories to tell. I can think of one where he ended up in the Amazon, and he was a teaching assistant, taught English to some of the Indian students there in a Catholic school in the Amazon. And they asked him to be the soccer coach. And so they were learning soccer, and they were having some big celebration where they wanted to invite the tribal leaders in, and the chief was there. And they all understood what soccer was about, but he taught them a different approach. He thought that soccer should be less competitive and more congenial, and so they didn't guard the the area where the ball would go into the goal, and they had a lot of points. And I think in this ceremony where the junior high kids were playing soccer, the scores went up to 50 or 60 because they didn't block any shots, and the students enjoyed it, and he thought he was doing a good job. But the chief came out and with a spear speared the soccer ball, and that was the end of that part of the ceremony. And he felt like, I've done something wrong here. So he slithered off into the jungle and found where the bus was going to come through late at night. So he was standing there in the dark feeling like, well, he really goofed on this job. He needed to be on his way. And then he saw the lights come up the road, and as it got near to him, all of a sudden he realized that there were literally hundreds of these tribal members with him in the dark, and they wanted him to feel like they didn't hold anything against him, that they wanted to wish him well. So those kind of life experiences don't happen in a factory, and they're not going to probably happen in a cubicle if you live and work there all your life. So in his sense, he designed a life that he was very comfortable with, and he enjoyed it. Now, it took a special person to do that because he encountered some serious problems, and a lot of times he didn't have food to eat for a couple of days. But that was his priority. So the world of work to him was do something that you enjoyed and live that way. But now the next person might think, well, I have to have a job and provide for my family, or pay my rent, pay my car payments. And so we make those decisions. We have the rent, we have the car payment, we have a certain city that we want to live in, and those requirements then say what kind of job we have. If you want to live in a house that only pays $200 in rent, and you don't need a car, you can ride the bus or the subway. That means you don't have to earn as much money. You probably could get by on a job that might make $1,000 or $2,000, and do very well. Or part-time work and earn $500 or $600 and do very well. However, if you wanted to live in New York City, a very small apartment might cost you $1,800, and you might have to have special clothes for your job. You'd have to earn $5,000 or $6,000 just to break even in that kind of situation. If you saw yourself in a more up-to-do house, like a house that cost $200,000, and the house payments were $2,000 or $3,000 a month, you can see then that you're going to have to get into a job that pays that amount of money. You're going to have jobs that might pay, upwards to $100,000 a year to live in a house that might cost $200,000 or $300,000, and a car that costs $40,000 or $60,000. That's a lifestyle, and it costs. So that you need to match the lifestyle to the cost to the job. And a lot of people don't realize that till it's too late, that they're in a job that won't accommodate the lifestyle that they want. I remember a student in the 70s, a very bright student. She developed a plan, and I recommend this would be part of the exercise. Describe what you want to do in 5 years and 10 years. Describe where you're living, what kind of house or apartment, what kind of cars you might have, what kind of furniture, what's inside your house. Are you carrying a briefcase to work and bringing work home? Describe your life in work, and at 5 years, 10 years out, what is going to be important to you. And this young woman, she had a description of a house with 13 columns out front. She had a BMW, and she had very fine furniture and tapestry on the wall and very nice jewelry, and she was dressed very nice. And then I asked her, what kind of job are you working at? And she says, well, I'm going to school to be a social worker. I said, well, what do you think a social worker would earn? Well, at that time, they were only making about $1,000 a month. And so I asked her, what do you think, this lifestyle is going to cost? And all of a sudden, I could see it on her face. There wasn't any way that that job was going to pay for that lifestyle. And so she had to rethink everything. And I urge you to think that through. Describe the kind of job you want, the kind of lifestyle you want, and see if you can match it, okay? Now, if you're out on the other end and you don't have to have a job that, for money, you're born with a silver spoon, then you have a lot of luxury to decide what kind of lifestyle you want, and the job would mean something completely different. We saw that over time, from the 50s and 60s, more and more women were coming into the workforce, and at first they liked, the paycheck, they liked the independence, they liked kind of the power it gave them because it gave them a right to say something about how their money was spent in the families. And I think that's related to the changing family in America. There's no doubt that as divorce increased after the 60s, 70s, 80s, we're now up to maybe 50% of families are divorced. That's all because of a change in the work environment and the ability to get employment and have paychecks and make those kind of decisions. And many of the women found that after they got divorced that it was completely different. They dropped down in economic status very quickly if they didn't have that other income. So I'm hoping that people can see that a family can work together and they can join their incomes together to have a better lifestyle. That's basically why our gross national product has increased as much as it has, because of the second income in families. And those families, where their heritage, their culture was steeped in education, and they got jobs like doctors and lawyers and those kinds of jobs with very strong earning capacity. Those are our highest earnings today, and what they have been able to do with their life is completely different than somebody who did not go to school and did not go after those jobs that paid more. Okay. So if you're satisfied in the lifestyle and the job you are, it could be a 30-year type of adventure for you. But that's rare. To be honest, most jobs do not last 10 years or 20 years. And the prospect of getting a gold watch after 30 years and retiring is less likely today than it ever has. So you need to be aware that, the job environment changes. It may not be anything that you do or any fault of yours, but economics, like in 2008, where 10 or 12 million people lost their job because the economy went into a recession. So you have to be aware that things can change on you. And I would urge you to, develop some kind of a savings program or investment program where you set aside a little money and have a cushion, because about 75% of Americans go paycheck to paycheck these days. They have no savings, they have no ability to basically take care of themselves if they lose their income from a job. Now, some of them might be eligible for unemployment for a while, but in many cases, that isn't even available. So always protect yourself in the future that something could change. And, what we're seeing is that affects how you identify with yourself, the loss of a job. And if the job is how you identify your importance, that becomes an issue then if you get fired or laid off. And even in retirement, my own father was 35 years as a teacher and principal in the elementary school, and when he retired, he found it very difficult to know who he was. He tried different jobs in hardware stores and those kinds of odd jobs, but he didn't feel like he fit. And a lot of studies show that people that retire and don't have some plan, something that they want to do, they don't fare very well. They become sick, and in many cases, within 18 months, 24 months, they'll die. So it's very important to have an identity that may be independent of work. You need to have an identity that focuses on your family or your friends or your recreation or the kind of hobbies that you have. And that's very important to knowing who you are. That work could be very important to you, and that's good, but you also have to have your identity attached to other kinds of characteristics, other kinds of activities, so that if something happens in the world of work, you can recover and still feel good about yourself. I've been there. I remember when the guard came by and took me to the administrative offices, and they told me they were laying off 600 people. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see why they had to do it. It drove me into, having to rethink who I was and what I wanted to do. So that's going to happen to you. On average, people change their jobs 10 times in their life, and I can vouch for that. That has happened to me. In some cases, I deliberately changed, and I had another job already lined up to move to. In other cases, I didn't see it coming, and life changed on me, and that happens, okay? But I look at job a little bit different. I've never identified my identity with a job. That's something I do, but who I am is something different. And I've always had a lot of different activities. And even now that I'm 68, I've been on Social Security since I was 62, mainly because they laid off so many people off. I had to have the income, so I took it. But I've remained in teaching part-time, and I write, and I have developed a number of other activities. I'm busier now at 68 than I did when I was working full-time. So I think that's important to give yourself an identity that's more well-rounded than just the world of work. I hope you can kind of understand that. So that's how you see yourself in a job, and if those things fit, if you love your job and you're excited to get up every day and go to work, that's great. That's what you should. I don't encourage people to stay in jobs where they feel frustrated or they hate the job, because it'll eat on you. That'll create stress, and those people get sick. Those people get cancer. Those people get stress-related heart diseases, okay? So that's not worth it. Several times I've resigned because the stress level at work was just too much. And I've been in higher education, and believe me, the stress can be very high in a university setting, and it's too bad, but that's just the case. So it's not a good idea to stay in a job that you don't like, okay? So get that to fit, what you want in life and how that job fits. That's very important. The third characteristic that I'd like to deal with is that you probably have different levels of need. And if you're coming back from the military or coming out of prison, or you've just been fired and you need to find a job, you might have a need level that says, I got to take any job I can get, okay? So I need income. I need to be able to buy food. I need to be able to buy gas. And if that's the level you're at, that means, the opportunities for picking out a career job might not be available to you. You may have to take a day job. You may have to stand out on a corner where the pickup comes by and people jump out to get paid in cash for a day. That's okay. Sometimes that's what you need, if that's what it's going to take to get by till you can keep looking for another job. You have to appreciate that. Don't let yourself get down or think that you're not a good person or anything. That happens to many people, and if you're at that level, you have to figure out ways to earn money, and sometimes it's not necessarily to get a job, okay? A job that, you're paying taxes and paying Social Security, although I advise you to head to that, but there are places and ways that you can earn money without, particularly at that level. I know students that have had vans, and they put an ad in the paper and they do light hauling for people for cash. I know students that paint houses for people for cash. I know people that buy old pickups and redo the engine and maybe fix them up. They might pay $250 for an old pickup and they can sell it for $3,000, in some cases. So there are strategies that you need to think about where you can earn an income and get you by, to keep you going, okay? You need to be creative about that, because there's a lot of opportunities for people to earn money on their own and your service to other people. and many communities have free advertising in a local shopper's magazine, and you could put an ad in there and say, I'm willing to do electrical work, I'm willing to do plumbing, I'm willing to do carpentry, and earn some money that way. Okay. Another level is to exchange. What skills you have. You might do some plumbing for somebody, and they might come over and do upholstery work or something for you. So there's some exchanges out there that you could get involved in, and some of them are very large. And once you get into them, you can maybe barter a lot of things for what your family might need, including growing food for people. I've seen people do that. So I'm not advocating that you break the law or do anything that's going to get you in trouble. But you have to be creative. Don't give up. On that level, you need to earn enough money to take care of your needs. And in some cases, you may have to lower your needs. Maybe move to a less expensive home, or sell the car and go to a less expensive car. Work it out with your neighbors to ride with them. There are options always. So that's a level 1. Now, level 2 would be a job that you'd like to have that you can use your time. I had a banker one time tell me that when you don't have a lot of money and you need income, you have to sell your time. So that's a labor kind of situation, maybe not a lot of skills, but you're selling your time. And you need to try and find a job that pays the most for your time, because your time is limited. And it may require some skills or some past experience. So analyze the kind of skills you've had, the kind of work that you might like to do, and apply for those jobs that have your time involved. Then, as you develop a skill level in an area, let's say you're an apprentice in a plumber, or you're an apprentice in an electrician, those are very good jobs to get in, and at first they may not pay as well, but as you get to a skill level, then you can sell your skill. Instead of just your time, you're selling your skill as a plumber or electrician or as a teacher. You follow? Once you have that skill, then you can get a higher wage for that skill level or that education level. In many cases, the education degree is just a kind of a reference for people. It doesn't necessarily mean that your education is going to help you in your job. It just tells somebody that you have the discipline and you have the energy to accomplish getting a degree, and that's worth a lot to some employers. Okay, so that's the next level. And then if you want to go to a higher level, you have to take money that you've saved in the second level and invest it in some way that keeps turning. Okay, that's a residual income, and you can do that by, say, investing in houses, rental houses. I know people, I've had students that over the years they've been able to build up 100 homes that they rent out. Small rental homes. They do the repair on them, they do the fixing up, and the income from 100 homes is very substantial. So by the time they're in their 50s or 60s, they have a residual income that comes in every month, and has hassles, but they have that income. I know a janitor at a college that when he came out of the Second World War, he took $1,000 and bought a couple heifers in a program in Texas. He lived in Iowa, and the program was in Texas, but instead of raising those cattle himself, he allowed this feedlot to raise them. They then sold them, and instead of taking the money, they put it back into then 4 cows, and then 8 cows, and then 16 cows. And so here was this janitor at this college. He's probably only making $1,000 a month, if that, but he had well over 1,000 head of cattle in Texas that were his. And so over 40 years, he developed quite a sizable investment. And as he got older, he started to sell those cows. And of course, then he had to pay the taxes on it. But those are those kind of strategies on level 3 where you can take your income and build residual incomes, either by those kind of strategies, or you buy a store and you run the store so you can turn products to make money. So that's that level. And that's important to kind of move from one level to the next in your life, so that you can retire without having to go paycheck to paycheck. And that's very difficult. And I can vouch for that, and even in my life, it hasn't been easy to always move in that direction. But that's the next level. And of course, you're hoping that at level 4, you can retire and enjoy life and do the kinds of things that you've always wanted to with your life. So I see jobs in levels, and there's different strategies for each level. So I would urge you to develop a little essay that describes the levels that you're interested in. What kind of things would get you into level 1, level 2, level 3, and then level 4, all the way through retirement, what you would like to do, no matter what stage of life you're at now, okay? The fourth area that I'd like to get into is the changing jobs in the future. And, I mentioned that we're going into the future. You're probably going to work from home. You're going to have more discipline and time management kind of skills. But there's more to it than that. Things are changing so fast, not just technology, but also, how we look at the world and, what kind of lifestyles we're living, that I would venture to tell you that in the next 20 years, everything's going to be different. And if you're planning on having a certain kind of job, it may not be around in 20 years. And you have to start looking into the future to see, what kind of technologies, what kind of jobs, what kind of locations, what kind of cities might be best to match your needs, and move towards those goals. For example, read the kinds of technical magazines, like Popular Mechanics and Popular Science. Those are very good magazines to talk about future technology. Or you can go to a library and just browse through the magazines that they have. The library in Ames has hundreds of magazines, and many of them are in technology. Or go to a university and get a reader's card just to go in there and read and see what is happening. Things in the future look like they come at us as surprises, but there's really no surprises. All the technology, all the new ideas, all the new inventions are being talked about today. And you can find out what those are. You can move in an area that would promise jobs. For example, right now there's a lot of jobs in programming, computer programming. But I'd be willing to tell you that within 10 years, there may not be hardly any of those jobs, because we're developing computers that can self-program, have artificial intelligence, that they don't need programmers to sit there and develop new programs for them. So I think things are changing, and I see that in all kinds of technology. The other thing that I would look at the future at is there's some very interesting challenges that are coming at us. How do we solve the environmental issues that we have? How do we solve the kind of population problems? How do we solve the kind of water problems we have? There's a very good opportunity to go into water management in the future, or solid waste management, or recycling. You see, you need to look at those kinds of jobs that are going to be needed in the future. Obviously, taking care of elderly people is going to be a big need, like in nursing homes and nurses. So if you can see what's happening in the future, I think you need to move towards a job that's going to fit the future as well as it does today. And there are a lot of those kinds of jobs. You just have to kind of move in that direction. But if you're taking this much time to think about all of this and write me papers on all of this, write me an essay of what you think the future of jobs would be and jobs that you would like. But also create for me a job that's going to excite you, okay? Life goes by pretty fast, but it's somewhat dull if you're in a job that you don't like. And if you can find a job that you train for and you plan for, and it fulfills you at work, that's exciting, okay? I urge you to have a career, to have a kind of occupation, the kind of work setting environment that excites you. And it might be at home and just working for yourself, or writing blogs or whatever you want to do. Or it might be, heading up a company that you start. I encourage you that. We need more people like that. And if you have a good idea, try to find those people in the community that can help you. The Small Business Administration has people that are retired. They'll help you, and for free. And there's economic development agencies that would talk to you for free and give you help in developing business plans that you can present to a bank. don't give up before you have the opportunity. I'm not going to tell you it's easy, but there's opportunities out there, and they're in the future. So you need to be in the future. Figure out what your future's like and how you're going to fit into that. And I urge you to be excited and comfortable and rewarding kind of work. Okay? So I hope that's given you some ideas, the kind of assignments that I'm looking for on the CEU level. 1, 2, 3 pages of these kinds of essays. If you want to work at it for a college level credit, I would like to see maybe 10 or more pages and 10 outside references. Research this. There's all kinds of literature out there on careers and jobs and fitting into those. Do some real research and give me 10 to 15 pages for an academic credit. Okay? So you can send those to me, and I wish you luck. Okay? Good. Bye now.